Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Dolce Jeans, and I'm back with another YouTube video. Today, we are going to be talking about the democratization. That's the word. The democratization of fashion and the death of real or classic luxury. It's kind of going to be on some history lesson stuff, but I think it's interesting, so that's why I'm sharing it. When I say democratization, I basically mean like how fashion got very spread thin and how the art side of it got diminished for the sales side. And the biggest factors that were playing into that, how it naturally happened, who really made it happen, how consumers reacted to it, and how it changed fashion forever. So before we get into it, please like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. It helps a lot. We hit 100 subscribers. Thank you so much. That's crazy. I didn't expect to get anywhere near that in a month. It was less than a month too, not to brag, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So yeah, like I said, we're gonna have to go all the way back. So in the 16th century, I have my notes right here too. In the 16th century, high fashion or like really good garments were only reserved for like the kings and the queens and the royals in general. I'm talking about they'll be wearing gowns with like 30,000 pearls and thousands of diamonds on it just for like the baptism of their child or something crazy like that. Like they used to ball out. Now fast forward to like the 1800s, you had people like Louis Vuitton making trunks again for like the aristocrats and the royals. That's the only people that they wanted to cater to because it was kind of like a status thing, like making clothes for like the royals and stuff. And there was also a very important man named Charles Frederick Worth, who is considered the father of haute couture, and he was like the first like stylist slash real like public, what's the word I'm looking for, like he would control the zeitgeist, he would control what's popping. He made like seasonal collections, and whatever like dresses he was doing, that was like the standard that everybody else would do, and his prices were astronomical. And he also only dressed like nobles and aristocrats and higher, because again, those are the people who you wanted to have wearing your stuff. That was like the seal of approval, right? But yeah, in the 1800s, it was more like, I guess, less absolute royalty. I guess it was like more like politicians getting in the mix and just really rich people and important people in society. At the end of 1800s, now the turn of the century, that's when we had empires falling and monarchies falling, revolutions, social revolutions, rebellions, violent acts, or governments just being usurped. It was changing, and basically the power of monarchs and kings and queens and kingdoms kind of fell, which basically opened up the way for the next best thing, or the people who are next in line. And these were the innovators and the entrepreneurs. I'm talking about the Fords, the Rockefellers, those type of people who are really making mad money off of their own invention. So they were the next in line to experience that type of luxury that the kings and queens had. And it was like considered a Western type of living when you're wealthy, to like show off your wealth with like possession. So they would buy enormous estates and buildings, have uniformed staff, underwrite public buildings like libraries and stuff. And they would also indulge in, well, not these guys specifically, but entrepreneurs. It was basically like a lot of disposable income coming to them. Stay with me, right? Now, of course, you had like the roaring 20s and stuff where everybody was getting more money. People were getting richer and richer and richer because life was like, the quality of life was going up. And then World War II happened, right? Because of World War II, like fashion and like the leisure of fashion kind of got chopped off, because people really had to like dress for absolute necessity. It was a very serious time. And in Europe, a lot of couture houses actually closed down and never reopened. But there are also a lot of couture houses that had to basically fight against the Nazis and being like, I'll never close down. And some of them, like Chanel and Louis Vuitton, had to like side with the Nazis to stay in business. That's another video topic that I'm interested in, by the way. But yeah, they had to like dick suck the Nazis to like stay in business and stuff. And basically, at the end of the World War, Christian Dior came around in about 1947. He didn't start in 1947. Well, he debuted his new look. He didn't call it a new look. That's the name that the public gave it. He debuted the new look in 1947, and it basically brought back romance in fashion, I guess, and like made ladies feel beautiful again. And Christian Dior is very important, but that's where fashion kind of went through it. The beautiful silhouettes on women came back. I'll try and put pictures of the new look on the screen. But yeah, it just made women feel a lot more lovely in their clothes, right? And for couture in the 1950s, because they wasn't ready to wear yet in the 1950s or something. But basically what couture was in like the early 1900s to the 1950s, you go to the show, and if you wanted to buy something, you'd stay after the show, go to the salon, which is basically like the store for the house, and you'd pick out the dress that you want, be like, oh, number 24, I really like number 24, I want number 24, but can you cut the hem by like an inch or two? And then they do it, and or they would just fit it on you right away even, and whatever alterations you wanted made, they bring it to wherever, like the seamstress, and then make it on the spot. And there would be about 3 fittings until you got it right, and then you'd like buy the dress. That's how it used to work. But with Christian Dior, right, he was like the first real problem for like real fashion or whatever. Which is kind of ironic because he's the one who like brought it back or whatever. Also, sorry, right before I get into that, just to kind of put this out there so that you understand the comparison later on in the video, like couturiers would like ask the woman like, yo, what are you going to be doing in this dress? Are you going to a gala? Are you just going to be walking around in this dress? Are you going to be sitting down for a long time? Are you going to be dancing in this dress? That's because literally based off of the activity that you're going to be doing in this dress, it required like certain different construction so that the dress would like be good. Like if you're going to be sitting down for a while, you wouldn't be able to use velvet because it would ruin the fabric on the seat part of the garment. Or if you're going to be dancing, maybe you would have to use flowy, more flexible thread and stuff like that. And these are the things that they would take into consideration. And brands don't really do that now, and you'll learn about that later on in the video. But basically, Christian Dior in the 1950s saw the opportunity to expand to America. And what he did, he would sell his patterns to department stores in America, and they would recreate like the couture gowns and stuff like that. And it wouldn't be the same quality, but it would still be, Dior. It was like a very early form of licensing, but not as hardcore licensing. But he basically licensed American stores to use his patterns so that they could recreate the clothes for Americans who wanted Dior but probably couldn't get to Paris or something. Now, Dior actually started officially licensing for hosiery, whatever. It's basically like for women, right? In 1948 in America. That was like the first real licensing outsourcing like venture. Now Disney hit it big with licensing with Mickey Mouse because they would give away the rights to Mickey Mouse to like make toys and other like animations and stuff and put his face here and there, and you'd basically get a percentage of that and of whatever people made with that image with their projects, and you'd also get like a base fee of people having to pay you to use the image. And Dior saw an opportunity for that, so he basically licensed out like the right to make shirts, swimwear, shorts, gloves, handbags, scarves, all of that. Yeah, all of that happened by, let's say, 1961. Well, it did happen by 1961. It did. So yeah, licensing was booming because Dior even had like rice cookers, like Dior rice cookers in China and stuff like that. Licensing was booming. It was making so much money because it was no longer all in-house. Like the small stuff was being made and sold elsewhere, but it was under the Dior name, so he was getting most of the profit, right? Other fashion brands saw this and started to, maneuver in the same way. Now there's somebody very important called Pierre Cardin. He was a former Dior associate, and in 1959 he designed a ready-to-wear collection for women. I'm almost 100% sure this was like the first ready-to-wear collection ever, and also because it was ready to wear, it was like the first collection to be bought on racks. Gone are the days where you go to the couture store and go to the salon and get the dress, fixed up by actual seamstresses on the spot, made perfect to you. It was basically just made to be hung up on a rack. You'd walk in, you check it out, you try it on, and you'd walk out with it. Also, he was the first person to really like put his label on the clothes, because usually before it would be like whatever store you go in to get these clothes made, it would have the store label on the inside of the clothes. But now Pierre Cardin put his label on it. It would be Pierre Cardin Paris instead of the store label. That was like the first person to really put their label on the clothes like that. And this had a lot of mixed reactions from the fashion world. Also, Yves Saint Laurent, another Dior assistant, in 1966, he made Rive Gauche. Pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. It was basically another ready-to-wear line targeted towards younger audiences. It was less pricey, less like formal wear, and this was also very successful. If you're not following, this is all tied into democratization, right? Because this is how couture basically started dying and ready to wear started to pick up, because that's what was selling the most. So that's why couture kind of got abandoned, right? And it was even at the time where if you were wearing couture or buying couture, you'd be considered like old or stuffy. And this caused Cristobal Balenciaga himself to be so disillusioned with fashion, he literally closed down his house in 1968. Like he was like, I can't do it. Like he was like, what happened to the beautiful game I love? Like he was so like disgusted. And a lot of consumers were having hard times adjusting too, because they were like, oh my god, clothes on a rack, that's so like lowly. Along with democratization in like Europe and America, of course you can't leave out Japan, right? Basically in the 1970s and 80s, there would be Japanese buyers who would go to Europe, buy out the entire store of Louis, and then bring it back to Japan and sell it for like twice as much because Japanese people couldn't get it in Japan. It's kind of like people will buy it and then like sell it for twice as much because of the import tax, right? This was known as a parallel market. A man named Henry Rokamiye was the head of Louis Vuitton at the time. He partnered with, I'm so sorry, I don't know the man's name. He partnered with some Japanese businessman to basically build Louis Vuitton stores in Japan so that the parallel market would stop and the Japanese buyers would be able to just, buy it on home soil so that all the money will be going to Louis. Kind of like vertical integration, but more so of just making sure that all of your money actually goes to your pocket and nobody's profiting off of your work. And Japanese people were definitely the ticket at the time because 40% of all luxury sales in like the 70s and 80s came from Japanese because they would travel and spend a lot, right? But basically what Henry Wakamiye did was stop that. He basically made it so that all the money flowed through him by actually expanding to Japan. And once other brands saw that this was successful, obviously all the other ones followed suit, like Chanel, Hermes, etc. Also, Japanese people would travel to America a lot, but the place they would travel to most is Hawaii. This is very important, right? In 1984, Chanel built a flagship in Hawaii because they saw that, oh, all these Japanese people are going to Hawaii. Let's capitalize on that destination. So they literally built flagships in Hawaii and put Japanese staff members in there or people that could speak Japanese and French and English to target these Japanese customers with disposable income because that's the whole reason they were spending so much. They had disposable income at the time. And that's just how greedy these brands get. Like globalization is such a big part of democratization because it's literally just going as far as possible to get these people to spend their money with you. Like there are stores that you literally couldn't go in without a boarding pass because they wanted everything to be duty free. Now, duty free services is basically any purchase you make where the money is guaranteed to not go into the mainstream of economy. So that's like on an airplane, in an airport, on a cruise. They were so concerned with like getting duty free sales, it's guaranteed to not be taxed. Because when when tax happens, a company loses the money through taxes. But if you don't get taxed, you maximize your profit. And duty-free services was its own independent thing, but Bernard Arnault literally bought it. So like the largest luxury group in the world, which was LVMH, owned the largest duty-free services group in the world, which was literally called duty-free services. So that's more of like democratization right there as well. Now I spoke about Bernard Arnault. You cannot talk about democratization without this horrible man. In 1984, he basically pulled a double cross on the chairman of LVMH, Henry Ramcamier, and he became the head of LVMH. And what he did, he immediately streamlined all the businesses, which made it like easy to recognize and easy to handle. So I'm talking like Christian Dior just became Dior. Burberry used to have an apostrophe S and it just became Burberry instead of Burberry's. Celine Vaspora or something like that became Celine. And he made everything so easy. He would hire young hip designers like Marc Jacobs at Louis, Galliano at Dior, McQueen at Givenchy, and he'd basically spend a massive amount on marketing. And what he would do, he would market the dream to you. He'd sell the dream to you. Tom Ford and Dominique de Soleil did that at Gucci as well. They would push like for the dream, more of the lifestyle, like, oh, this is the Gucci woman, this is the Louis man, this is the Dior woman. And fashion shows, especially at Dior, would be up to like $2 million of a budget with John Galliano. It was also larger than life, all to sell the dream, so that you would not be able to afford the clothes, but you'd be able to afford the lipstick and the perfume and the small handbag. And by the way, the people who buy most of this stuff are middle-aged women. That's the main market in fashion. That's a whole nother video. But this is also democratization because you can see throughout the decades, it got less and less about the craft and more about how can we get the most money out of these people? How can we maximize the money that we're making? What sells the most? How do we push that the most? That's why they put so much money on marketing, because the further you reach, the more money you get. That's why some of these brands have billions, and I mean billions of dollars on marketing and marketing alone, because that makes the most money. It's all democratization, just trying to spread it to the most people as possible so the most people can have even just a piece, because that's what makes the most money, and that's all that matters to these horrible people. Now, in terms of democratization in America, Americans were eating good in general from like the 80s and the 70s upwards. Like the rise of the middle market was real and everybody was just eating good. Disposable income was up, and when disposable income goes up, spending goes up. That's all you need to know. So basically in the 90s, many luxury brands saw that America was up. Okay, we're gonna move to Beverly Hills, we're gonna move to Rodeo Drive, because there was a Gucci originally in LA And that Gucci was like extremely good, to the point where people would go there and just buy out the whole store. So other brands saw how good Gucci was doing in LA, because LA was prosperous, and Las Vegas. So they would go there and build flagships all around. Well, maybe not flagships, but they would build stores all along Rodeo Drive. And that's why it's even so popular now, because it's like a heritage place. That's how they expanded in America, right? Also, when these brands sell all these clothes, but they still don't sell everything, those are like the leftovers, and those leftovers get sent to outlet malls. Outlet malls were also on the rise because it was very cheap, discounted clothes that came from these real big heritage brands like Dior and Givenchy. But because they didn't sell, they basically went on sale in the outlet malls, and some of the clothes were just in there because they had like defects or something, or they were samples, so they could sell them for immediately cheaper prices. And there will be Americans leaving with carts full of clothes from actual designer brands, and they might have actually been designer quality, but they just weren't, sold in the original boutiques, so they went to the outlet malls. And that also contributes to democratization, and it all goes to the brand, and it's widespread sales. You get the cheaper shit that might be the best quality because it didn't sell originally, which is an easy concept to understand, right? Please stay with me, I'm not done yet. There's still more factors that went into democratization, like online shopping. So Natalie Masnet, I think that's how you pronounce her name, she basically made like the first real successful online fashion retailer for like high fashion called Net-a-Porter. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce it, not Net-a-Porter or something like that. It launched in June 2000, and it was very successful because Chloe was the first brand to really take a chance on it, and it sold like Chloe handbags or Chloe accessories. And due to how successful that was, like it literally had a waiting list at one point for Chloe stuff, to the point where Chloe made Net-a-Porter their official online store. A lot of other brands saw this working, and they basically hopped on Net-a-Porter. Now, Net-a-Porter isn't bought by LVMH or any other big conglomerate. It's still pretty much independent, but they stock everybody you can think of that's important, right? And that was basically the first successful model of online shopping. And you know how easy online shopping is, it's still around today. More democratization. Now, Japan was already conquered and secured, but there was a boom in China in the 1990s, right? The thing about China, they had a much larger population, much larger, so there was much more growth. And the thing is, Chinese people, it was kind of a very secure and closed off population because of how it was at the time. But let's not act like China didn't have like a huge history of luxury and silk and beauty in it. So it was kind of like a sleeping beauty, and a lot of brands basically took the chance to expand there in many ways. This is extremely important for democratization, so listen up. Well, before we even get into that, China had a lot of people, and because of new restrictions that were being let up on the country, they could travel more. So China ended up being like a lot of travel purchasing. That contributed to so many brands like income, because Chinese people would love to travel and then just buy, buy, buy. It's kind of like when COVID restrictions got let up and people began to travel again. That's like China, but in the 1990s. So yeah, because of this untapped market, a lot of brands started actually going there and building stores. But the main thing is that these brands went to China to get cheaper production and cut corners in costs, because they took advantage of like the weird, horrible labor laws over there, and the fact that labor over there is much cheaper than producing really well in like a French atelier or Italy or Turkey or somewhere nice. China is like dirt cheap. It's child labor in there. It's 7 day, 10-hour work weeks. It's literally to the point where people live in the factories. Like the factories are built like universities with dorms. Like you work, you go to lunch, you work until you stop and sleep for like 5 hours in your dorm, and you wake up and you go back to work, all in the same place. Like it's horrible, it's inhumane. And brands literally cut corners there for production because the labor is cheaper. So they increase its profit margin because you spend less on production and you increase the price of your own products, even though the quality is getting literally worse. The first brand to really have success with this was Coach, and back then the labor wasn't that bad. Like brands basically saw that Coach could outsource production to China and still get similar to almost exact perfect quality. And once they saw that Coach could basically replicate the quality with China, everybody just flooded China. But it got worse and worse because people always wanted to cut more and more corners. Now you're probably not wondering this, but I'm gonna present something for you to think about. Is like most of these things end up saying made in Italy, made in France. How come it doesn't say made in China? Well, they use very sneaky tactics. It will be like it doesn't say made in China on the bag. It will say made in China on the bag, but sometimes they put it in such small print that you have to use a magnifying glass to actually see it. And it will be on the inside pocket at the bottom of the bag. So technically there's still a tag, but nobody's gonna ever find it. Or sometimes it would be like the handle of the handbag was assembled in Italy, so they get to put made in Italy on it. Or sometimes they literally get the bag, disassemble it, and then reassemble it in France so they can say made in France. Just to like trick consumers and stuff. The laws on it are not that strict in Europe in terms of like telling people where you actually got it from. A real life example is the Balenciaga Triple S's, how they used to be kind of good quality when they first came out, and then they announced they were outsourcing their production to China, and everybody was like, why are you doing that? And they were like, oh, because we have such a high volume of these shoes being ordered that we can't keep up, so we have to outsource to keep up with the demand. But people would literally compare the old Triple S's with the new Triple S's. The old ones were so much better quality. The new ones were like lighter and way worse, and it was just obvious that even when Doc Martens outsourced their production from England to China, like people were like, oh, the new docs are just not it, which is crazy. This is all to basically be able to sell for more and make for less, to cut profit margins. To increase profit margins and cut production costs. And because of that, basically it created a lot of employment in China, which ultimately led to more disposable income. Chinese people got to spend more. China was an untapped market. Everybody started building flagships and huge stores in China. And Chinese people started shopping for luxury. And again, the population is so huge, it's more than 1 billion people over there. So, more globalization, more democratization. This didn't only happen in China. Outsourcing led to so many booms in India, Korea, and other like really Eastern countries. And because of the production and the more jobs and more prosperity in general in like the 90s and early 2000s, more brands have started to expand. Where there's more money being made, the brands look at it, it's like they can smell it, bro. Like they can smell it. More people get money, they see spending money and showing off as a Western ideal of showing your new wealth, and then they become new frontiers for these fashion brands to expand them because these people get a taste for fashion when they get new money. So it's literally just a vicious cycle, and it's probably gonna end up happening to every country in the world that doesn't have it right now. Is gonna have it eventually. They're gonna get more money because of more production. When they get more money, they're gonna buy more luxury, and then these brands are just gonna build over there, and it's gonna keep on going until there's no more room left to grow. And then what? But yeah, that's basically all of democratization. Oh my god, 29 minutes of recording. That's basically how fashion got very spread thin. It was just cutting production costs and just expanding to the furthest reaches of the globe. And also just the craft, the love of the craft died, and that's why so much fashion nowadays is mediocre. Yeah, it became all about the money at one point. Now the death of classic luxury is because luxury isn't really what it used to be. Luxury used to be like having golden cutlery and silver cutlery in your house and butlers and maids. That might sound cliche, but that's really what it was. Like just how I told you with the Fords and the Rockefellers with the uniform staff. That's what like classic luxury used to be. And nowadays, luxury is like people try and trick you and be like, oh, luxury is the feeling you get from buying clothes. No, it's not. Luxury is supposed to be luxury. It's supposed to be high quality service or product. It's supposed to be luxury, not, oh, I bought this and it makes me feel luxurious. Like, no. If it's cheaply made and it's cheaply done, it's not luxury. Luxury is also denoted by exclusivity and like the social class it gives you, unfortunately. Whether it's like obvious or if you know type level. Like quiet luxury or a Bottega trench coat. That's obviously luxury. Luxury isn't supposed to be some cheaply made Gucci bag. That's not luxury. Luxury is supposed to be something very well done, very high class, hard to get for the regular person unless they're actually living in their means. That's why luxury is so easy to market to the middle class people, because middle class people will like dream of that life. And when they buy the pieces of luxury that they can get, they live in a dream a little bit. But the people who are actually luxury, that's why quiet luxury was such a thing where people are like, oh, the people who are actually luxury won't buy logo filled clothes. They'll buy Loro Piana or a $500 white t-shirt. It's kind of true because that's the way how they live. They live above like buying things to show it off. And also one thing I really wanted to talk about is how Hermes got sued for how they sell Birkin bags. Hermes was considered one of the last real luxury brands, one of the very last ones, because everything is handcrafted, everything is made from the finest like crocodile leather. It would be like 15 people working in the atelier. One person would work on the bag. It would get sent to be quality checked by another person. It would be inspected with like special light. Like, trust me, the process was so thorough. Like Hermes was legit luxury, right? On top of that, it's like the exclusivity of it. You can't just walk into the store and buy like a Birkin. You have to make an appointment, and you have to be approved to be worthy of buying one. And then even so, it would like, you wouldn't even be able to buy any one. Like, you'd be able to buy whichever one they will allow you to buy, and you have to wait months for it to get done. And it could range anywhere from like 10,000 to like 100,000 plus for a Birkin, depending on like the leather you wanted, like turtle leather or ostrich leather, which are like the highest quality, or like the size, or if you wanted certain accessorizing and customization. But they recently got sued because it's kind of like pay to play almost, when it's like, oh, you can't even buy a Birkin unless you spend a certain amount of money with us, or like you can buy a Birkin if you buy this thing and this thing and this thing along with it. It is a bit shady, but the fact that that's like the last real luxury service and like it's getting shut down, it's like, if you were a fashion purist, you would think that, oh, nothing is held sacred anymore. They're trying to democratize Hermes so that everybody can buy a Birkin, but when everybody buys a Birkin, is it really a Birkin anymore? I think not. And like the only other brand I can think of that's really in that type of realm is like Chrome, because like you get custom Chrome jackets and like custom Chrome jewelry. Even though Chrome has a lot of stuff you can just buy too, but you set an appointment and you get custom stuff. But I don't think they're gonna crack down on Chrome. I think they're just picking on Hermes, and that's like, I bring up the Hermes situation to really put it all into context and signify how like it's just changed forever, and how it will just keep on changing until nothing will be distinguishable as luxury anymore. There's barely any couture that's done on the runway on a very high level. Prices are getting astronomically high, but product quality is getting worse. I think at some point all of this shit is gonna crash and burn, and when that happens, I'll be there. But yeah, this is finally over. Thank you so much if you made it here. Thank you so much if you made it to the end of the video. I appreciate it a lot. That was basically, it wasn't very in-depth obviously, because we would have been here for like 2 hours if I tried to explain to you just exactly how everything went down in fashion with democratization. But that's basically the rundown. I really hope you learned a lot. I really hope you enjoyed it. Put a lot into this video. Please like and subscribe again. Share it with a friend if you think they find it interesting. And give me some feedback, because I always appreciate that for sure. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.